All right, so what you see up here is our agenda for what we're going to be covering today. We've done attendance. I want to do a quick check-in on assignments and do a little bit of clarification. So you have your schedule of assignments, and you might want to print that out and bring it to our class sessions, but keep it very handy. Your first assignment is due on August 23rd, and that is your elevator speech or a self-introduction. Now, a lot of people do this all the time when you walk into a job interview or you are going, somebody meets you for the first time or you're asked by somebody for a scholarship application or something, tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, the response to that is what we call an elevator speech. And an elevator speech is used as a networking tool to introduce yourself. So it should be a self-marketing speech where you are positioning yourself, you are informing an audience of one or a few more of who you are. So it's our chance for us to find out who's in our classroom, but most importantly, it's a chance for us or for you to learn how to do a full sentence outline, okay? So in your Moodle, you are going to see a piece of paper that looks something like this. And this is the rubric that we are going to be using for all speech outlines. And this is a tool to assist you as sort of a checklist of all the things you need to have included in this speech. Now, it's a very simple speech. It's probably also only about 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds. So your outline will not be real long and detailed, but it does start to show you how to do the formatting and the parts of a speech that always need to be included. All right. I'm also going to send out an example of some ways that you can start off an elevator speech. And by the way, it's called an elevator because that's the time it takes to go typically from the bottom floor of a high-rise building all the way up to the 20th, 25th floor, etc. Where that's how much time you have to introduce yourself to somebody interesting in the elevator. So that's where we get the term. It's pretty common. We use it all the time. If you go to a trade show or a career fair or anything like that, this is what you're going to use to introduce yourself as you're walking around and meeting potential employers. All right. So here's some ways that you can start it off. Somebody says, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. And so here's some interesting approaches. And I'll post this so that you can see and pick one that you like. So one example is my personal philosophy is about life. Another might be, well, a quotation that I live by is. Another approach is to say, I can summarize who I am in 3 words. And you say those words and explain them. I like this one because this is very current for your generations. Okay. Well, I Googled myself this morning and here's what I found. If you haven't Googled yourself lately, you need to be doing that on a regular basis. And another one, and this will be the last one, is, well, when I was 7 years old, I always wanted to be a professor, or I always wanted to be, blah, blah. Okay, so those are some starters for elevator speeches. I'll post this for you to help you get started. But remember, it needs to be a full sentence outline because I want you to start using this as your guide for how you're going to set up your content. All right. So also, I mentioned in that earlier video that you will have an opportunity to introduce yourself to me privately if you want me to know something special about yourself. I put it out in an announcement that in an email that came to everybody this morning, and it's an attachment, so you can download it and fill it out, and then upload it in an email and send it to me privately. That's different from the elevator speech. This is really a chance for you to self-disclose as much as you're comfortable, something that you might need assistance with, okay? Because I want you to be successful, and I don't want other things to get in your way, all right? So I got lots of resources I can connect you to if you have problems. And I want you to submit that as needed. It helps if you submit it to me early, especially if there's a special pronoun that you want me to use to refer to you as we move forward. Or if you want help with speech topics, to tell me what are your likes and your hobbies, your career goals, etc. Or everything might be just absolutely perfect for you, and you don't need to send it to me until you do get that traffic ticket and you cannot pay for it, or you have major child care issues when you thought you had it all worked out, whatever it might be, okay? So I'm here to help you be successful. Now, an elevator speech is very different from the other speech assignment in Module 1, all right? Module 1 is what's known as a special occasion speech. And a special occasion speech is usually used to entertain or to make somebody feel good. Helps your audience to feel good. If it's a eulogy, it helps people feel better about the passing of a loved one. If it's a thank you for receiving a scholarship, it's to help the audience and all the members who contributed to that scholarship fund to feel like you appreciate what you did for them, okay, or what they did for you, okay? So it's a special occasion, which means it falls into our category of to entertain. To make the audience feel happy, to feel good, to laugh, and that kind of thing, all right? That's different from an elevator speech. An elevator speech is to inform. You are informing somebody about who you are, right? That's different. Okay. So that's the distinction between those assignments. And having said that, that goes into this item right here. If you would like to follow along with me, I am going to be using our online free resource book. All right, now I happen to have a hard copy, but you can pull it up in HTML. And I'm going to go first off to chapter 1. All right, why public speaking matters today. And you can follow along. I'm going to go all the way down to 1.1. And I actually recommend that when you come in here, unless it's a speech day, that you always have your laptops up or your phones open to the online resource. You can use your phones as easily as you can use your laptops if you don't have a laptop. Or you can listen well and wait until you get home and you're on your desktop computer to go along with a video presentation, okay? So, giving you some time to get out your equipment. Okay. So, in chapter 1, it gives a broad blush overview of what is public speaking. And the first thing I'd like you to recognize is that there are only three primary purposes for all speeches. So I've given you 2 of the 3 already. To entertain, to inform, and the third purpose is to persuade. Now, all of us who teach public speaking, we believe that inherent in all speeches, as part of communication studies, that there is a persuasive leaning to any speech that you give. Even if you're trying to entertain, you're trying to persuade people to have a good time and to feel good about you as they are doing that. If it's to inform about a topic or a place or a person other than yourself or about yourself, there's still some persuasion going on, either to be wary or worried or concerned or protective, or to embrace and take action or what have you. So we speak for a reason. In fact, oftentimes when I'm coaching people, executives or students, if somebody says something to you, when they self-disclose anything, in tears or offhandedly, or as an aside in an email or what have you, they want you to know it. They want you to know what you just said, even if it's sarcastic or even if it's just a joke. So keep that in mind, that there's always some degree of intent for whatever is being said, and therefore a persuasive context. Okay? So 3 main purposes for all public speaking. Now I'm also going to talk to you about the process models for public speaking. I'm going to give you an introduction to 3 of them. We're going to talk about the dialogical principles of the type of public speaking that we are promoting for this course. I also want to talk about Chapter 2, and I want to cover Chapter 2 specifically about the ethics. So the code of ethics, the ethics pyramid, talk to you a little bit about a chart to help you use a checklist, and finally we're going to conclude by exploring a little bit about the First Amendment in the United States for free speech and what that really means. All right, so I am actually going to now erase this because I want a big drawing space for the process models. So I'm going to draw the very first type of process model in its most basic form. And if you jump over to Chapter 2, it says the process of public speaking. And if you go down to 2.1, it talks about the linear model. So this is the first of 3 models. The linear model is also known as the transmission model in other communication courses. Okay? And basically, it's I speak and you listen. All right? So that means then that there is a sender, and this is the language of public speaking, and this is the language of communication studies. I, the sender, am going to send you, the receiver, a message. There's something that I want you to know, and it is something that I think or something that I feel. Okay, so it's my head or my heart. Basically, it all boils down to that. All right, so you being the sender or I being the sender, in this model, I am going to send a message over a channel. All right. Now that channel might be a text on a cell phone. Okay. Might just be a cell phone. It might be the computer in front of you. It might be standing face to face. It might be over the telephone or the radio or the television or other kinds of mediated elements, the radio, etc. But it's linear because it's on a line. It's just one person to one other person or one person to many other people. All right, but it's just a line. It's one directional. That's the important element to differentiate it from the other models. It's one directional. I speak, you listen, right? Now, there's 2 important elements to all communication. and that's called code, which is why communication studies is very similar to communication technology, i.e. in computer science, okay? So I have an idea or I have a feeling, and what I'm going to do is encode my message. So I'm going to take the message that's in my heart or my head, and I'm going to put it into a code, a language, or symbols, nonverbal or what have you, that I believe the receiver is going to understand. Okay? So same language, numbers, whatever it might be. Now the N is a critical component because that means I have to create it based on my knowledge, okay, my skill sets. So a little child, who's a toddler just learning to speak, the amount of coding inside the brain is still very limited. So the EN process is going to be only a matter of what language code is already in that child's understanding and vocabulary, etc. Okay? Even though they may be sending it to a mother who has far more code, doesn't matter. They can only operate with the limited amount of knowledge of symbols that they have to work with. Okay? So that's why it can be difficult at times because of language barriers and other kinds of things. Okay. This receiver then is going to decode. All right. Decode. So that simply means that the receiver is going to translate it, put it into an understanding of the language. All right. And this is helpful, but unfortunately, there could be some things that get in the way. And I am going to call that noise. There can be a lot of noise that could distort the accurate understanding of what the message is. And your resource book is going to go through a whole lot of them, but let me give you a couple of examples. One might be, I just don't like you. And so when you speak, I just tune you out. I don't care. All right? So I'm not going to get your message. That's very common noise to happen. All right? I just don't like you. Another way of this being distorted or noise are, the environment. Maybe there's a snowstorm or a rainstorm going out there, or somebody's doing some mowing of the grass and the noise is too loud and is keeping you from hearing and understanding. Perhaps you have a physical impairment, such as an inability to hear or inability to speak. And so the code that's being used is not something that you understand, so you're not able to translate it, all right? Other kinds of noise could be, oh, I don't like the way you look. You are let's see, you're an old white lady. Look at all that gray hair, and you're kind of short, and what gives you the right to tell me anything? Because I'm young and I'm energetic and I know a whole lot more than you, right? So it could be an attitude or a psychological bias against the sender of the message that could get into the way. And then there's cultural, there's social, there's all kinds of other things that could prevent, and that's what we call noise, this being received, the message accurately, okay? But in this linear approach, I'm never going to know that because I'm just sitting it out there. All right? That leads us to the next type of model, and the next model is what's known as the interactional model. And continue down on your page in your resource book, you're going to see, now my diagrams are a little bit different because I think mine are better. So I'm going to demonstrate now the difference in the models. The number one difference in the first two models is what's called feedback. At that point, it's not just linear anymore. We're going to call this linear. Now it's going to be over this way, back this way. So there is a transaction occurring. Okay, so action is transferred. The transaction is critically valuable, even in public speaking. If I'm standing in an audience, and one of the reasons why this format is difficult for me, because you're like in this little tiny box, and some of you are probably on your phones, some of you might be napping, some of you might be, daydreaming or thinking about significant other. So I'm not getting any direct feedback. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to fix that at some point. But at this point, without feedback, I'm kind of just dealing in this world. When you are speaking to a large audience and you can see everybody and people are doing this and they're going, huh, really? And they're giving you eyebrows, they're giving you smiles, oh yeah, they're giving you the head nods, or they're going, Okay, that nonverbal feedback or verbal kind of thing, or what have you, that's important for public speaking because we feed off of how our audience is responding to what we're saying. All right, and we're going to talk about that because that's what we call dialogical approach. Okay, so that's feedback and that's transmission, and that's a good thing. We really, really want a lot of transmission. Now, the information, does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. Then we move into another type. And the other type is really looking at well, actually, I'm just going to call it transactional. Your book only gives you the two. You don't need to know the third. Oh, excuse me. This is interactional. I'm sorry. It's not transaction. My mistake. I apologize. Okay, interaction. There's an interaction. Okay, so they're interacting. All right, interacting. Now, I do want to go over the third. The third is what we call transactional. All right, so this is going to make more sense. Okay, so here we have what's known as context. And when we look at transactional, we're going to broaden our lens of understanding all of the different elements of communication that are occurring at the same time. All right, so we went to the very basics, then we expanded out to a little bit more to see where there's some interaction back and forth. But now we're going to look at it from the really, really big picture. And when we look at the big picture, we're definitely going to be taking into consideration for noise, but we're also going to look at the context, okay? So let's look at one of them, which is relationship. What is your relationship as a speaker with your audience, okay? So if you are sitting here in this class today and you are a Democrat and you have been watching the Democratic convention, then your relationship to the speakers is one of commonality. You are probably have a high degree of similarities of opinions and attitudes and values with the speakers at that convention. However, if you're sitting in this class and you have more of a Republican leaning or even a much more independent leaning, then your relationship to those group of speakers is going to be conflicted. It might be even combative, confrontational, etc. So that's going to impact on a person's ability to receive a message, and is going to drive or be considered for a person who is creating the message. All right, so relationship is very important. Relationship, when you're speaking to classmates, and you're giving a speech to just the people in your room, here in this class, you may drop an F-bomb, and it might be absolutely okay. But if you are presenting to a group of professors on campus, I wouldn't recommend that you do that, because the relationship is not going to be the same. All right? Which takes us to the next context, which is social. The social context has to do with power structures. Power structures are really like socioeconomic. You think about it that way. So social is, again, social status. So student to instructor is different. If you are a guest at your business and your supervisor has asked you as a line worker to come in and speak for your other colleagues, people you work with, to other managers, all right, there's a social division between you and the people you're speaking to. And sometimes you have to keep that in mind. Sometimes you need to be aware of that context, again, in what words you choose or what examples you utilize, etc. Okay. Another kind of context is what's called cultural. All right. So if I go into, and this is going to be silly, so just laugh with me, okay? So if I go into, I'm from Los Angeles, and if I was to go into, East LA or Watts or a community where the dominant culture is one with people who have far darker skin than I have, and I try to act the same cultural way that those people do, I'm going to look silly. I'm going to be laughed at. I'm going to be discounted. I'm going to be possibly even offend people, and people are going to find me offensive. So that is a cultural barrier, and so you want to speak appropriate to the culture. Now, that means then I need to go in as my authentic old white person and speak to them as an authentic white person, but recognize that and not disadvantage them or belittle them or dismiss them in any way by what I say and how I say it. It can be very complex and very sensitive, and something we need to be careful of. And you see it playing out in politics all the time, where people are constantly messing up. That is oftentimes the concept PC, politically correct, has come in, where some people think that it is not being authentic. I like to think of it as the video that you're going to be watching in the class, which is called Civil Discourse, which is being respectful. Okay, so politically correct is trying to be respectful with being inclusive and using language that is not hurtful, that does not hurt people. Okay. And then the other is going to just be another context is the psychological as well as the physical, so those P's. And we're going to be talking more about the psychological later. Psychological plays into a lot of the noise, as does the physical. But the psychological can just be, you know, I'm having a bad day and I just don't really want to deal with you. So, you know, or I don't physically feel well. I'm in class so that I don't get counted off, but my head hurts. I can't even pay attention. Okay. So there's physical, and then there's psychological that said, I just had a screaming match with my significant other who has pissed me off to no end. And right now, all I can think about is what I'm going to say when I see this person again, right? And that's all examples of noise, okay? All right, so those are the models, and that's the language that we are beginning to use as we study public speaking with the intent of being good public speakers. And all of this is explained in your resource book. But if you scroll down to 2.2, that's the part where it talks about what we refer to as dialogic. Dialogic. Now, there's another term I want to introduce you to, and that's called extemporaneous. Look at that over here. All right. I do not want you to memorize your speeches. I don't want you to stand up in front of your classmates and just read off of a piece of paper. I don't want you to use the crutch of an outline for other than a quick glance or a referral like you see me doing on occasion. That means then that the dialogic approach is that we are going to have a dialogue when we do our public speaking with our audience so that we can get feedback rather than a monologue. Now, right now, I'm kind of doing a monologue because, again, I'm not getting that feedback because you're in that little tiny little box. I can't see you. But hopefully my style is such that it feels very conversational. And that's what I want it to feel. I want you to feel like I'm having a conversation with you. And so you feel like I'm not talking at you or to you, but I'm talking with you, right? So we have the opportunity for exchange. And by my offering you to ask questions or, you know, even make a comment, that's dialogic. That means that we are engaged and not just being passive. It creates a more active kind of environment for public speaking. It also means something very important. Now, we're going to do a quick little activity. So I want you guys to literally take a piece of paper, take out a piece of paper, and I want you to tear it in half. A little piece of paper and tear it in half. Okay? On one piece of paper, I want you to draw a picture of the ugliest, creepiest, crawly thing that gives you the heebie-jeebies when you see it. It could be a spider, a snake, I don't know, banana slug, it could be crawfish, it could be centipedes, I don't know. Whatever is gross, just really gross, that you really can't stand. It's just, for me, it's snakes. I don't like snakes. So just draw that very quickly. And you might want to label it in case we have trouble knowing. Cockroaches, ooh, that's another thing. Ah! So just draw something that's really gross. Okay? And then put that. Now we're doing it fast. This is no Rembrandt. We don't need to be artistic. On the other piece of paper, I want you to draw a picture of a person in your life who represents motherhood. It might be your mother, it might be your grandmother, it might be your friend's mother, it might be the Virgin Mother, it might be anybody who you believe just represents all that's wonderful about being a mother to other people, okay? And if you need to write the person's name down here, if your art is not that great, that's okay. Happy faces or stick figures are good, with short hair or long hair. Does the person wear glasses? All right, you got that drawing? Are you done? Yeah? Okay. All right, now stand up. Everybody stand up. Right where you're sitting. Okay? All right, so I want you to have both of those pieces of paper in your hand. And I want you to take the one that you drew, the ugly, creepy, crawly thing, and I want you to crumple it up. Everybody has to crumple it up. I want to see you crumple, crumple, crumple. Everybody crumple it, okay? Yeah. And then I want you to throw it on the ground, and then I want you to stomp on it. Stomp on it, stomp, stomp, stomp. Kill it. You killing it? All right. Everybody's killing it. Good, good, good. Okay. Now I want you to take that other picture and I want you to look lovingly at this person who represents motherhood to you. I mean, it could be a dad, could be lots of different things, but they are the nurturers, the carers for you in your life. And now what I want you to do is to crumple it up, throw it on the ground, and step on it. Now, did everybody do that?
Yes.
Everybody did? Okay, let me see. Let me get you bigger. Did anybody not step on mom? Man, you guys are ruthless.
I thought those were the instructions.
Okay, so you did it because I told you to, right?
Yeah.
You just stepped all over your mom because somebody told you to do that, right? What? What? You didn't disagree with me?
It's a picture.
Okay, now typically I would have maybe only one or two students who would have stepped on mom and crumpled her all up. The rest of you would have said, no way, I'm not doing that. All right, go ahead and sit down. Why do you think some people would have hesitated to stomp on mom? Shout it out.
Because the paper symbolized your mom.
That's right. So it's symbolic, exactly. So the paper, even though it was not the physical attribute of the mother, represented the mother. So that's the second point about this, is that in dialogic way of communicating. Words are, the meaning of words are in the people of your audience. They're always in the audience. All right? So if you say bitch, oh great, we have the classroom door open. But anyway, they all know I cuss. Okay, so, oh, thank you, fine person, for closing the door. So if you say bitch, all right, there's different ways that you can say it. You might refer to your female dog, right? And that would be perfect according to the American Kennel Association. Or you might say, hey, bitch, come on over here, let's chat. We haven't talked in a long time. That's going to be a different meaning of the word bitch. Or if you said, oh, you bitch, right? And that's going to have another meaning. So meaning is in people, and we have to be careful of that when we are using and selecting our words so that they do not inflame or cause issues or problems with context with people. All right? And the last thing that it says is that all of these contexts mean that what you say, you got to put this phrase inside your head, is going to be, it depends on what you're going to say, how you say it, where you say it, when you say it, in terms of what you mean by it and what other people understand about it. All right, so we've talked about context, we've talked about dimensions. The last thing I want to call your attention to is over in chapter 2. So everybody scroll down your resource book to chapter 2. And we're going to start this part of the discussion, and we'll pick it up on my next lecture, next class. On figure 2.1, there's a little pyramid. And that little pyramid identifies the 3 elements of an ethical component for your message as a public speaker. What's your intent? What's your purpose? Trying to achieve? What's your goal? The second is going to be, what are the means? So that's the methodologies that you use. That's the support that you use. That's the medium that you use. And then there's the ends, or the result. So hopefully none of you are going to be like Machiavelli from the Renaissance, who said that the ends always justify the means. Because that component believes that I can do anything as long as I get what I want. That is not ethical. That is counter to everything that we teach in public speaking from an ethics perspective. So keep that in mind. And before your next class, I encourage you to look at 2.3. So scroll down to 2.3 in your resource book. Here is an ethics checklist. Here's 15 points. Before you submit an outline, you will want to go back to this all the time and ask yourself these questions to ensure that you have indeed been able to say you're okay in all of these areas. It includes plagiarism, it includes truthfulness, it includes, sources. Are the sources legitimate? Fake news versus real news, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so that brings us to a conclusion. I did not get to talk about freedom of speech and First Amendment. I will start that with next class. All right, if anybody wants to ask me some one-to-one questions, I'll stick around for a few minutes. If you come on up to the camera and want to ask the question, otherwise you're fine, and I will see you next week, next Wednesday. Have a good one.